What is up, my Cutouts Cardboard Ninja here, coming at you with the Polar Lights update in Crossout. Yes, it's a bit behind schedule, but this is due to multiple reasons that you guys are not overly interested, and I'm presently not in my domicile, first of all. And second of all, I've also been playing the update, and I kind of have mixed feelings about the Battlepass, so I've been hesitant on making a video about this. But let's get right into it. There's the new Battlepass. I'll go over that later. Just purely later. It levels up exactly the same as previous battle passes. They give you fuses, things like that. I will go over all that later. So, new machine gun, the Gugner, and we've got the Sleipnir tracks. They're nothing special. They're just tracks. The Gungnir, I will go over a bit later. The Hugin cabin is actually much more different than I thought it would be. I thought it would be 10% per stack. It's not. It's 35% per stack. So 35% cooling per stack means that if you have 3 weapons, you cool at over 100% faster speeds to get your guns cooled back down, which is very interesting. This is an interesting gimmick. This has a potential. The Hugin has a potential to become the best raiding cabin, but not much else. This because of the fact that you can have 2 Retchers and the Hugin, that will actually give you some in the neighborhood of 70% faster cooldown, plus whatever you have on radiators. This actually could prove to be very, very good on raids, but other than that, we'll see how well it does in DPS tests in the future. The Nothung, this is actually a very interesting machine gun, by the way. One thing I will mention about the Gungnir is the hitbox of the Gungnir is very small. You can build effectively right on top of it, which makes it very protectable. But other than that, nothing too special. This is a machine gun update. There's no special weapons that are coming in this update, which kind of is bothersome. Really, it's just two guns, 2 machine guns. That and the Nothung. The Nothung, of course, is the first machine gun that you do not want to bring any radiators with. You want pure coolers. First 5 shots after overheating deal 100% more damage. Interesting story about the Nothung. The damage on the Nothung is no joke. Its actual shot damage is the highest of any machine gun at 14.5 damage. With it perk activated means it does nearly 30 damage, does 29 damage per shot per Nothung. That's actually a lot. To put this in perspective, you've got the Punisher at 12. The Punisher being the relic version of machine gun. The DPS of the Nothung, however, is not the highest. I will actually go over this on a little continuum for machine guns in a second. The Munin is the new medium cabin. It is the medium drone cabin, and this has, of course, caused the grenade drones to skyrocket in price. People are thinking that this is going to be amazing, but so let's just go over this. It's got 2 perks. First perk allows you to point your drones at people that you want dead. Second perk is activated for 7 seconds, at which point your drones do 100% more damage. But at the end of that secondary ability's cooldown, the drones are destroyed. There was a bug with this where it did not work with fuse drones. It now does work with fuse drones, so hello to fuse drone cancer. That's going to be here forever. One of the things that needs to be understood about the first perk, which is the allowing you to point the drones at who you want, they claim that it worked very similar to the Annihilator. It does not. So the Annihilator drones, when you retarget them, they jump immediately to their new target, hunt them down, and it's embarrassing. They're scared. Everyone who's ever fought Annihilator drones knows how Annihilator drones roll. That is not how the Munin works. You point them at what you want, but their retargeting and let's just say re-engagement is still what it used to be from whatever drone type it was. So if you're using grenade drones, it will still finish lobbing shots at the previous target before changing targets. So in reality, it gives you only a minor amount more control over your drones. Mind you, this is probably super cancer with fuse drones. The Thor generator is in the game, and it's one of the last unlocks on the entire Battle Pass. I will be going over the Battle Pass later and how I feel about that. New CKs for the Omnibox and Fuse Drone, excellent. Game modes, etc. The new CoDriver is in. Hertz. Hertz is actually really interesting. I'm going to be putting him on my CoDriver tier list soon. He has 3 passive skills, as all CoDrivers do in 1 active. The 3 passive are Protective Field Durability. This includes Nova Aegis and the Barrier. When you are heated by enemy weapons, this includes from fire or from a Gravistar or from not an Arbiter, but any heating weapon such as a laser, etc. It's reduced by 40% in speed. And then finally, speed and distance requirements to activate bonus perks is reduced by 20%. I'm going to go over that in just 1 second. This is for not perks. So this is a non-self-referential perk because the CoDriver's active skill of Hertz is that as long as you're moving at 80% more or of your maximum speed, it charges. Once it fully charges, for 4 seconds, I believe. Yeah, for 4 seconds, you have 30% more part damage, but reduced damage to everything else. Funny story, this was bugged, and it was recently fixed. In fact, you did not receive the bonus to damage against parts. You only received the negative damage until very recently. So thankfully, they fixed that. Now we're going to go over this last perk part right here. Speed and distance requirements to activate bonus perks reduced by 20%. Funny story, this actually makes Adatlan even worse, and you might be thinking, Adatlan? Why would I even talk about Adatlan? Well, because speed and distance requirements includes things such as the Favorite and the Tusk, but also the Blight. So this means that if you've got a Blight build and you like activating Green Flame, guess what? Hertz activates Green Flame even faster. So that just craps on Adatlan even more. Yeah, pretty good stuff. This is very synergistic with the Bigfoot tires as well, because you can have Bigfoots for 50%, you can have this as an additional 20%, and you can go popping these things like popping your Novas, Aegis, etc., like they're hot as you do. The nerf to Falcon, increasing the charge talent from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, is actually a really big nerf. They need to bring this to 2.5 or back down to 2. I've been playing with Falcon. Keeping your eye on someone for 3 seconds is a lot harder than you'd think. That is if you're looking to actually receive the buff. Having it just passively on, that's nice. But, you know. Yuki's buff is huge. Basically, effectively, you just need to be behind someone for like 1 second to activate Yuki's perk, which is good. New maps. The Volcano map is cool. They've added new things to battle rotation, etc., etc. Nerf to the Borer, as we all know. I tested this out a little bit, and this is actually a pretty interesting buff. It will still bully low power score, most certainly, because the problem isn't the Borer, the problem is the lack of bumpers, but it's not as good, slightly higher out of its power score bracket that it used to dominate. Borer is still good, just a little bit worse. The Prosecutor 76, and we're going to go over the Executioner 88 at the exact same time. Prosecutor 76mm had its blast damage in radius improved by 50%. By the way, that is a 100% diameter increase, and so too did the Executioner 88. But the Executioner 88 also increased its blast damage by 6%, also improved its reload speed by half a second, and its durability is increased from 495 to 545, considering it is a very large cannon. That is a long overdue buff. Hopefully we'll see more Executioners in the Wasteland. I don't know if that's enough to actually make it better than, I mean, obviously it's better than it used to be, but, you know, good enough to compete with other epics, which is what they're believing that this change will achieve. I, for one, love the Executioner. The Executioner is a great gun. Its natural penetration has always been a pretty dang good thing in the power score that it's been at. Yeah, but it's always been outperformed by the Prosecutor, who has the exact same penetration now. Not always, but ever since the Prosecutioner's penetration was increased from 1 meter to 2 meters. I'm sorry, 1 pin to 2 pins. The Prosecutor just has outperformed it simply because of its reloads rate. I mean, you're crit seeking. You're not actually trying to hit something hard. You're trying to hit high explosives that people are hiding in their build. The Pyramid, the rocket launcher now reloads even faster. This is because of the fact that the Pyramid, even though it is a buff to the Wasp, simply didn't reload as fast as the Wasp, and so the Wasp just was better. Even though the Wasp was a weaker version, had lower power score, less durability, the Wasp actually was just a better version of the Pyramid. Pyramid now reloads half a second faster, which is a huge reload increase, so now that may not be the case. People can actually upgrade to the Pyramid happily. Dead Man Cabin dropped from 25 to 20%. Huge nerf, but necessary considering the number of weapons that they keep shoving into the game that are effective with single-mounted, such as the Yongwang, such as the Annihilator, not the Annihilator, the Avalanche, the Kaiju, and so on and so forth. If they keep putting in these large single-hitting weapons, then the Dead Man's value of 25% was just simply too dang high. So they brought it down to 20%. Just a straight nerf. Sorry. Yongwang perk damage bonus has been reduced from 15 to 12%. Small damage nerf. This does affect Leviathans, but doesn't affect very much else. Barrier energy drain reduced from 3 to 2, which means that you're going to see more barriers out there in the Wasteland, because 3 energy was way too much for what it did. They reduced the shield durability by 19% to compensate for this. The Tormentor, as I mentioned before, damage bonus has been increased from 50 to 80%, and the active time from 5 to 6 seconds. It's irrelevant. In reality, most melee builds work better without the Tormentor, and the reason why is not because the Tormentor... It's because damage bonus doesn't matter for melee weapons. Melee weapons attempt to hit frame. They're not trying to bore through parts, they're not trying to go through bumpers, they're not trying to go through wheels, they're not trying to go through hovers, they're not trying to do any of that stuff. They're trying to hit your frame, right? And frame only has a 50% damage resistance against melee. So because it has such a very minor resistance against melee and a very comparatively low durability in general, any melee weapon in contact with frame is going to plow right through it. That's the reason why melee doesn't need the Tormentor, and that's the reason why most builds that you see don't use the Tormentor, because the fact that that damage bonus is irrelevant. You're going to deframe them and blow up their cabin instantaneously regardless. So why should you spend 2 energy to change nothing for 0.2 seconds of contact, you know? The Aggressor, a buff to the Aggressor, it now has more tonnage by 100 tons, and its mass limit has also been increased by 200 tons. Also, the time to reset the charge has been increased from 0.5 seconds up to 1 second. That's a good thing. Basically, they've doubled the amount of time you can turn and maintain your charges on the Aggressor. Buffs to the tank tracks of all kinds, so it's easier for you to turn. Good. Tank tracks suck. This will make them suck less. They will still not be meta because they are bad. Icarus 4, Icarus 7, they've air quotes fixed a bug in calculating the acceleration of hovers, aka another hover nerf. This is all, like, all of these hover nerfs that are coming down are only because of the fact that every time they put forth hover buffs, the community is like, you know that hovers just keep shitting down from space on every player now. You know that, right? Like, they did it before, you just simply made them faster and better at it. And they're like, oh, well, we'll just tweak them a little bit. Every single tweak has simply just been rolling back the buffs that they gave them. This is just another rollback to the buff. Accelerate, the heavier massed hovers now have more difficulty accelerating, more like it was before they buffed them and made them fly effectively. Reduce the effectiveness of acceleration on the tilting, so basically on Icarus 7s you don't tilt as much, and you can now slightly be visible when you're invisible. The Arbiter, straight nerf, and this is the same difference as the... Did they actually pass it through? Yeah, the Equalizer. The Equalizer and Arbiter both lost 5% damage in general. Optimal range was reduced and maximum range was reduced. And there's a reason for that. And this has to do with not... They're claiming that they were too good in long-range battles. That's not the reason why they did that. You know that, and I know that. If you are unaware, I'll simply tell you they did it because they're releasing 2 new machine guns in this patch. And the contemporaries, their opponents, would be the Arbiter and the... Equalizer, and so they simply nerfed both of those before releasing the new guns into the game that fight in the exact same space. That's all. The Reaper, they improved the physical model of the weapon, made it smaller and more like close to the actual size of the Reaper, so you can actually build better with it, which is good. Optimal range increased by 50 meters, great. Accuracy increased by 11%, great. Reaper is still dog shit. This will change none of that, unfortunately. But the Reaper needed a buff. I'll take any buffs. Honestly, it needs more hit points. It needs to be hit scan. Those are the fixes. Assembler. So for those of us who don't know what the Assembler is, it is a legendary weapon that nobody uses. It is effectively a crossbow. It charges up, fires a shot across the field. After fully charged, it does a, well, fair deal amount of damage. The penalty to the weapon's rotation speed is 33% instead of 61%. They didn't explain what this means because they're just saying now there's a penalty. Yeah, when charging. When you charge the weapon, there's a rotation penalty. Now it's less, so you can actually aim better. When the weapon is charged for too long, which is the overheat mechanic, instead of making it 100% overheat, meaning that people can strip the gun more easily, it heats to 50% so they can strip it a little less easily. Accuracy without charging was increased by 11%. In case you don't know, you do not really need to charge this gun. You can tap fire it. Nobody does this because it does no damage, and you cannot hit anybody with it. Now there's a 11% greater chance that you will hit somebody with a weapon that you will not use in a mode that you will not use. The Kaiju has been buffed, and I did a whole lot of testing for this because I wanted to make sure this is accurate. The Kaiju is buffed. This is a straight buff. It says now the weapon fires 2 more shots per burst. Yeah, 100% it does fire 2 more shots per burst. And it's not as though they took the damage of the Kaiju, averaged it across the shots, added 2 to the shots, and then gave that average to the damage. That didn't happen. The Kaiju still does 75 damage, 74.5 damage per shot. Still, it just fires 2 more shots. Pure buff. Just more damage. Just straight up does more damage. I tested this in the garage moments ago, and when I was in the garage testing it, I was able to get to 1500 damage with the perk active as well as Falcon. So that's a 15% damage buff plus a 20% damage buff from its own self-referential perk on the damage ball for 1500 damage. So That's actually really, really good. The sheer fact that you can get to 1500 damage without using the Cantilena, as I know there is a JB Ryder video out there where he's using Cantilena and tested the full Cantilena perked Kaiju on the damage ball and got to 1700. That was pre this buff. So it probably does 2,000 or does closer to 2k. Obviously, it's going to do closer to 2k damage now after that. So huge Kaiju buff. Kami was basically reset back to the way it was released. This is basically nothing. 1 second on the perk, cooldown, 1 second reduced on the perk's duration, and the stats are reset to release stats. But what they failed to mention here is that while the stats are set to release stats, this is still incorporating a 17% mass acceleration nerf from 2 patches ago. So the Kami actually accelerates very similarly to a 95 km/h cabin, even though it is a 100 km/h cabin. They did this because of the fact that everyone knows that top speed dictates acceleration in this game, and at 100 km/h you simply accelerated significantly faster than a 95 km/h car or cabin. So they basically brought this in line with the 95 kph cabs. Avalanche. This used to say 30%, now it's 100%, and before at 30% it was irrelevant, 100% it is not. The Avalanche will now do far more damage to yourself at point blank range, so if you crash into someone and use that left mouse button, you're going to pay. Yeah, you're going to pay for it. The self-referential perk of the Avalanche is that while it's reloading, it takes less damage, 30% less damage, so I mean, it's not 30%, you cross out 30%, so it's like 23.3% less damage or whatever, but the idea being that you still now have more of a reason to, well, it's not really a reason, you still are receiving that damage resistance, basically, to prevent yourself from taking that damage, but Avalanches can strip themselves now. The Ripper discs now have 90% melee damage resistance, and they cut the damage durability in half. Thank freaking goodness. This is cancer in Levy CW. They just throw Ripper discs on the ground just right in front of your Leviathan. You have to stop, and they just keep throwing those discs regardless, because your Leviathan keeps auto-targeting the discs because it's stupid. And at 100 durability, it actually is somewhat difficult for them to remove. Now at 50 durability, they'll be easier to remove, but with 90% melee damage resistance, that means they have effectively 500 durability to try and crash through, which is good because it's fair. And they changed the physical model of the disc to match the size of the visual model. Cool. That's actually probably not cool. It's probably going to hurt even more. Other than that, they have a minor thing saying, now the controllability of the armor car will change if the parts that have a strong effect on the armor car's center of mass are destroyed. So this probably simply means that cars are going to flip more, because that's something that, you know, isn't something that you necessarily had happen in Crossout before. Minor interface changes. Let's see if there's anything that matters. Oh. Nope. I mean, okay, so technically, yes, in raids, things automatically work now with the exception of Frontier Defense, so you no longer have to hold down R all the time. And yeah. Nothing else there really matters. Miscellaneous fixes. Handbrake mechanics. Braking distance when you use handbrake is shorter. You cannot continue to move forward. When making turns, the reduction in speed is now severe when driving a straight line. This allows you to actually still drift, because the fact that they're trying to make it so the spacebar, or sorry, whatever your handbrake button is basically a hard brake now. They updated the physical and visual models of the armor track. This is true. The armor track does look different. In addition to that, you can mount stuff on the exterior of the armor track, which is kind of cool. The rockets, Wasp, Pyralid, Cricket, Snowfall, Locust, and Waltz rocket launchers have their own visual effects under the effects of the Step Spider cabin perk. So, they look different. That sounds interesting. I'll take a look at that. And improve the effect of disappearance and exploding barrels, etc. Alright, cool. So, let's go over a couple of things real fast. Machine guns. In case you guys didn't know this, I was actually curious about the No-Thung and how it was going to stack up against the other guns in the game, specifically the other machine guns in the game, because there's something very interesting about the No-Thung, and that is that it hits harder than any other machine gun in the game. It hits at 14.5, the second hardest hitting per bullet machine gun in the entire game comes in at 12.5 as the Reaper. After that is the Punisher at 12, and then the Miller. The Gungner, which is also a new gun that was just released, at 11.5. The Miller does 11 with a 101 damage high explosive part. The Aspect starts out at, I think, 9.6 damage. 1 second. Meanwhile, the Vindicator comes in at 6.5 damage, but it actually fires 2 shots at the same time, so it's actually doing some in the neighborhood of 13 damage. But yeah, so we've got weapons that do damage all over the place. The Arbiter comes in at a whopping the lowest damage at 4, and the Imp actually comes in at a pretty decent 8.4 damage. This is, of course, with its own self-referential perk of it doing 5% additional damage because it itself provides itself 5% additional damage. The No Thung only does 92.8 DPS, even though it hits harder than any other machine gun. But the highest DPS machine gun, as people may at this point be wondering, well, what is the highest DPS? Coming in at, this should no surprise, actually a pretty big surprise to me, was the Reaper at 126.3 DPS. If you manage to fire and hit all of your shots for 10 seconds, it actually does more damage than any other machine gun. Problem is, as we all know, it's got a very wide cone of fire. It also has not a hit scan gun. It's got a slow turret traverse, so it's actually unfortunately quite poor, and it also takes 6 energy, so you can only have 2 of them. Next up is the Punisher. Individually, it does 112.8 DPS for over 10 seconds of firing at the damage wall, which is actually pretty dang wild if you think about it. After that comes in the Miller at 109.7 DPS, again, assuming you miss no shots and keep landing those 101 damage high explosive shots. And then after all of that comes in the No Thung at 92.8 DPS. It's still good. The No Thung, of course, is all of these weapons were set up to be super optimal. In case anyone is also interested, continuing down from the No Thung at 92 goes to the Imp. I'm sorry, the Aspect at 89.5, assuming that you get it up to its perk limit and then use the favorite cabin to maintain continuous fire at its perk limit. Then after that is the Imp at 83.2 DPS. Don't forget, that is only a singular Imp. If you have more Imps, your DPS per Imp actually increases by 5%. Every single additional Imp that you bring. After that is the Arbiter at 73.7, and the Vindicator at 76.7. And interestingly enough, the Gungnir is the lowest machine gun on this entire list that I'm giving you right now. It's 66.7 DPS. The Gungnir, even though it does 11.5 damage per shot, which is comparable to the Punisher, comparable to the Reaper, comparable to the Miller, its damage is dog shit. Simply because of the fact that it's got a self-referential damage debuff of 15%, because as you fire it, it slows down in fire rate, so that it can give you worthless accuracy. So, Gungnir, not a very good gun, to be honest. In this update. The No Thung, quite a good gun. Surprisingly, it's not the best, but if you manage to ride that perk, you can actually do pretty well. Interestingly enough, though, most people are going to think that you should combine the Gungnir with the new Hugin cabin. No, you don't. That's not what you do. Everyone knows what you're supposed to combine it with. You combine it with the Cantilena. The damage combined with the Cantilena is ridiculous. Period. So you can actually get a relatively cheap, long-distance, mid-ranging end-game gun out of this Battle Pass. So, now that we're done talking about the machine guns, let's go to the Battle Pass real fast, because I think that I kind of want to talk about that. Let me change this over to game capture. There we go. Excellent. So, the thing about the Battle Pass is I don't own it yet, and normally I would have purchased the Battle Pass when it came out, but I don't want to. I tend to keep bad news to myself. I don't want to, be down on Crossout. There are plenty of people who are down on Crossout. I don't need to be another one of those people who is also down on Crossout, but looks like I'm going to be coming down on Crossout. This is the worst Battle Pass so far. I am not a machine gun player, so I'm not overly interested in the 2 weapons that are released in this Battle Pass. Both weapons are, in my opinion, boring. They're simply machine guns. There is absolutely nothing special about them, and the Gungnir is one of the, if not the worst machine gun in the game of Crossout, based on DPS alone. That assumes literally perfect fire, perfect play. It still does 66 DPS. It is outperformed at everything on release. It's going to probably get buffed later because it is genuinely bad. But let's go over the Battle Pass. The reason why I don't own the Battle Pass and the reason why I'm considering not purchasing the Battle Pass is because it is underwhelming. This is week 1 of the Battle Pass. You spend an entire week and you unlock what is effectively nothing. You unlock 4 pauldrons. You don't even have to pay for those. Yeah, I mean, these pauldrons have 8 durability. So far, not interesting. Earlier Battle Passes, and I've mentioned this many times before in other videos, earlier Battle Passes released give you something to play with, usually. Even if they're terrible, they give you Tempura, terrible weapon, but fun. They give you those autocannons, which are completely and totally terrible. The Therms, but fun. They'd give you the Tempests, not necessarily good, but fun, right? So they would give you something that you could play with in the game. They didn't give you jack shit this time. Week 2. Week 2, you're going to get 10, count them, 10 repair kits. Whew! Look at the fun. Look at the fun we're having. Oh, yeah. Yeah, getting those fun repair kits. And then some coins and some lighters. Oh, well, you don't even get those if it's free, but that's fine. And then you unlock 15 durability, Nautilus parts. Wow, that's 2 weeks in the game. 2 weeks into this battle pass. And you've unlocked effectively nothing. Alright, fine. So, next week, you finally get the Gungnir. Week 3, you finally get this gun. How many did you get? 1. In previous battle passes, you usually got 2 fused weapons, and this is so that you can actually use them. You can't use this weapon. This weapon is already terrible, first of all, because of the fact that all the things I've mentioned. But then in addition to that, you only get 1. So it's doubly unusable. You get some CK stuff. This is the bulb I am actually somewhat excited for because it is 126 durability part, so that's good. But other than that, really, week 3, pretty weak. That's why it's called week 3. Week 4, 2 tracks, not even 4 tracks. You can't. What are you gonna do with 2 tracks? You have to already have tracks in order to use these tracks. It's ridiculous. Everything else here, more pauldrons, great, and a CK. All right. Finally, I think this is week what? Week 5. Week 5, into this battle pass, you'll unlock the Hugin, which will change raiding if you actually do raid with Retchers. But other than that, you're not really going to use it because of the reasons that I'm going to tell you. Well, the reasons I've already told you, and I'll reiterate. The reload on weapons typically isn't the thing that holds them back. It's typically number of bullets per magazine. This is the reason why Retchers, everyone brings RN Seals. They don't bring a bunch of coolers. They don't do that. They might bring 1 to help expedite it, but nothing beats the RN Seal in general, right? And that's the Hugin. The Hugin is like, ooh, I'm going to increase your DPS by making it so your weapons cool down faster. Yeah, we've already had that. It's called the Omnibox. Most people don't use machine guns. You can, but most people don't use machine guns with the Omnibox for that very reason. Having your weapon cool off faster isn't necessarily that good. And yes, the Nothung is boosted by the Hugin's buff, but again, the Cantilena outperforms this by leaps bounds. And of course, they need to nerf the Cantilena, but even if the Cantilena were removed, would I use the Hugin? I don't think so. I would rather use those machine guns with just a bunch of coolers and on hovers. So the Hugin, Continuing on, you get a whole bunch of, again, not much. You get, well, I mean, you can get a little icon for your character. You get some CK stuff, paint, but not really anything that important. Week 6, you finally get 1 of 2 Nothungs, and the other thing is you get the ability to create the Nothung, but there's a little asterisk next to that. The way that you craft it is with lighters, and don't worry, I will get into lighters in a moment. Yeah. Then the Nothung becomes available week 6. You probably want 3 of these if you're planning on going into endgame without getting Punishers, because these are pretty decent at point shooting. They do, again, the most damage per bullet of any machine gun in the entire game, even if you're not using the perk effectively. You get some expansions, you get some more CK stuff. Then you finally unlock the Munin, which is, of course, as everyone knows, everyone plays drones in Crossout, right? Except we don't. Like, the overwhelming vast majority of players actually don't play drones. Drone apocalypse ain't coming back. This cabin isn't going to be able to bring it back. But in reality, not many people like drones. Myself among them. This is the reason why I still haven't purchased this battle pass, because I'm just not feeling it. But yeah, you can get the drone cabin at week what appears to be 7 or 8 or something like that. And then, of course, the final week, you finally unlock the Thor. So if you're brand new to the video game, sure, you do finally get a 4 energy generator, and you get it for free. The only problem is the damage that it does is more than any other generator in the game, including the gas gen. So when it explodes, it's taking you with it, which is fine. I mean, considering that, it's the light version of the Apollo. Will it replace the Apollo? I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. So, with all of this said, how do I feel about the Battle Pass? Again, as I said, not good. And that comes down to this, because you can craft your own parts. Great. So let's assume I wanted to craft my own parts. This no-thung, for example. 650 lighters. Do you guys know how many lighters you get for completing the Battle Pass? Completing it. 75 levels. We're talking 6 weeks. Do you have any lighters you get? Anyone care to guess? I'll just simply tell you. You get not enough to craft one no-thung. You come in just a little bit shy, if I did the math correctly. You actually have to reach level 76. You have to get the additional 15 lighters in order to give you just, you'll have additional, like, 10 lighters or something, in order to actually craft one no-thung. So you can, if you do the entire Battle Pass from stem to stern, you can get one additional no-thung. But wait, what if you want the trifecta? What if you want 3 of them? You have to reach level 105 or something like that? It's ridiculous. Let me just do that math for you. You need 50 additional levels. You need to be Battle Pass level 126. So by the end of this Battle Pass, you'd have to be Battle Pass level 126 to get just 2 of these additional no-thungs. And that is all. Assuming you get nothing else. Assuming you get no Gungnir's, no Sleipnir tracks, nothing else. You craft nothing else with these lighters. You have to get that many Battle Pass levels. That is an insane number of Battle Pass levels. Like, hold on. Let me give you an example of how insane that number of Battle Pass levels is. So, I find myself playing this game often, right? Here are my previous Battle Pass levels. 83 and 105. How are you going to get to level 120 plus in order to get one weapon? It's just really, really brutal. So that's how I feel about this Battle Pass. It's a resounding meh to me. I don't like it. This Battle Pass, I think, is reaching, because again, every company is trying to find out the limits as to how little they can give you in a product to sell you, and you'll still pay. And I think that for me, this is the level. I think that this is over the line for me. I think that for me, just personally, giving you 2 individual guns and a couple of cabins that I don't like, personally, I just don't like the gameplay behind this cabin, and freaking repair kits. It's like, ooh, here, repair kits. It just feels like you found the price point that I'm not willing to pay, personally. Like, personally, I'm just like, I just don't feel the value as the previous Battle Passes were significantly more valuable. But then again, for some people, this generator alone is probably worth the price of admission, to be super honest, only because of the fact that getting your hands on a fused Apollo is actually no easy task in the first place. So, there is that. Those are my feelings about the Battle Pass. Hope you guys are enjoying Crossout. I'm having a fun time regardless, but I don't know. This new stuff doesn't seem too interesting to me, and I'm sorry about that. Anyway, sorry for not making videos sooner. I had to get a hold of this microphone in order to make it so my voice didn't sound like a dookie dog crap. But yeah, hopefully that the audio doesn't break up in this video. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the wasteland. Peace.